Okay. So there you go. So that's centering. Normally, that takes weeks to learn, but honestly, you can do it like in 30 seconds if you just follow those steps. There you go. Now, next is to open up. People call this welling or opening up. Again, you can do this many different ways. When I get it on center, I don't want to lose that center. So I'm going to keep my hand here stable. Look at me though, I'm like a robot. And I'm going to sink in. I like to do it with my middle finger and then let these two fingers go like this. And I'm just going down. Again, don't think, just do it. Just go right down. How far do I go down? Well, if you went down to the wheel head and you feel the wheel head, you went too far. So you'll just learn how far is the right distance. You can also do techniques where you take a needle, stick it down, pull it back up and say, okay, I'm in, you know. But the best is you'll get a sense for the feel. Okay.
And then with your foot, when you're controlling the speed, what are you doing as you're doing that? I mean, do you want the wheel to be going really fast? Do you want it medium? Are you slowing down and speeding up?
Okay, good question. I mean, that's full speed. This is a really quiet wheel, so you can't even hear it. That's full speed. Typically, you want to go full speed when you're centering, or a little off of full speed. It's a good question. I mean, it's usually like if 10 was the fastest, I would be doing everything initially at 9, and then as I get closer to an actual form, it goes all the way back down to like 0. Okay. So right now I'm at like an 8.
Okay.
So if you could see a speed dial, good question though. That's another thing I'm doing with my foot that you don't notice. I'm subtly going to change that. So I'll try to tell you when I do that. Okay. All right, so back to welling. I'm going to first go in, and we'll get a close-up of that so you can see it. Next, I'm going to pull that open. Okay, depending on what you're doing here, if I'm going to make a bowl, I'm going to be making that inside form. I have to think about that. I wouldn't want to pull a flat floor if I'm going to make a bowl. So I'm going to make a bowl. So I am going to come out, pull towards me, and then just pull up a little bit. And just, you're thinking about, you're making the form from the inside out. You know, a lot of people are concerned about that outside form, but you really should be concerned about the inside form. If you can get the inside form, the outside form will come. Okay, just kind of getting things under control here, just being quiet. See how sometimes I hold my hands, I stabilize. It's like a golf swing. You want to like kind of stay gripped. Okay, so I'm just kind of pulling out and getting that form. I'm showing you guys a bowl because typically you learn cylinders first, but the reality is everybody makes a bowl first because it goes out into a bowl. So let's really see how to make a bowl first. Sponge. Okay, this first tool I picked up. I tend to hold that sponge in my hand and push it down like that so I can kind of compress my rim. I call it tending to my rim. You know, tend to your rim, get that nice and compressed. Okay. So here we go. We're pulling out, pulling up. So far, I'm hardly doing anything. I'm subtly turning this thing into a bowl. I'm not trying to do too fast. Now, we're going to go to making the pools. So you're going to work at 3 o'clock. Here's what beginners tend to do. They put their hands on here, and they tend to float because of the speed of the wheel. It pulls them, and they want to. You got to stay right at this 3 o'clock spot. Okay. I'm squeezing with my fingertips. I'm turning it down to maybe speed 7 now. And I'm squeezing in and pulling up. Doesn't look like a bowl, but trust me, it can easily go out. So you always want to come up. If you can come up, you can go out. You don't never want to pull out like that. You always want to be pulling up. And you don't have to do it in one pool. A couple, 3, 4 pools is right. You'll feel, depending on your clay, you'll feel friction. Some potters use the actual slip. They throw that in. I'm just using a little bit of water just to kind of let that clay slide through my hands. Okay, again, I'm starting with my fingertips. They meet, I squeeze, and I pull the clay up. That's why it's called pulling. Pulling a wall. You're actually distributing clay up. So if you can see my fingers, you know, if the clay is thick, I'm squeezing. And then as I'm squeezing, you're trying to keep an even wall. If you feel like you got your fingers too close together, you get a thin spot, then your next pull, you want to bring the thick clay and leave it into that even channel. Okay. So a good potter can take a little thin spot and pull thick clay into it. You know what I mean? Like distribute clay into it. Now that last pull, I kind of got out a little bit, so this one I'm going to pull I'm going to work more with my left hands. See that? My
Yeah.
left hand's pushing more than my right, so I can get a little control on that. Now I got more of a form like that, so because this can flop at any minute. So if you don't watch it, and I'm pretty much at my limit there. I want a nice thick rim. I've got nice even walls. Then the fun is just taking your ribs and shaping it, cleaning it up. Playing around with the different textures. And then I take a wooden knife like this, cut away the clay at the bottom. Just something like that. And that'll allow it to release off of the bat.
Nice.
And there's more clay there than you want, but that will trim away later. And I think, if you shoot for a bowl first, this is a good, realistic first thing you can make. And so
It's
let's,
beautiful.
thank you.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It only took 14 years to figure out. But actually, no, if you just follow those steps, you'll get it. So let's now, us do it, and I'll work with you guys individually.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Sounds great. Thanks.